Good morning, everyone. My name is Kelly, and welcome to the space. Today's episode is going to detail the intersection of asexuality and race. So, this is going to be the first intersecting topic that we are going to cover. And I wanted to bring in some research and stuff I had found. I actually did a literature review earlier this year detailing research and facts I found from authors discussing the intersection of many different things with asexuality, the first of which being race. And so I figured I would share that research with you all, as well as share some of the discussion that I had and the discussion that I found. So, firstly, I wanted to, of course, start and say that overall, the research that I found said that the narratives of asexual people of color have been lost and are often silenced comparatively to the narratives of white asexual people. And actually, Rebellious Magazine shared the specific stereotypical figures that have harmfully impacted and harmfully portrayed both sexual and asexual people of color for years. It is important to note that these stereotypical figures are still around today. So, one of which is described specifically for the portrayal of Black women, is the Jezebel. So, the Jezebel is actually a hypersexual figure that was created by white men to disvalue and oppress the Black woman. The next stereotypical figure is also for Black women and is actually the opposite of the Jezebel, called the Mammy figure. This is a hyper asexual figure whose sexuality is completely put aside and completely ignored for the sake of centering and for the sake of valuing white male sexuality. The next stereotypical figure is the China doll or the geisha girl, whose sexuality is also hypersexualized purely for male enjoyment, male pleasure. The next one that is detailed in Rebellious Magazine, actually by Ebony Perks, the journalist who wrote the article, was the desexualized Asian male trope, which portrays particularly effeminate Asian men as an asexual fantasy of men who are above sexuality. She says, Miss Perks says, that these tropes have, quote, historically stripped people of color's personhood of any nuance, end quote. She goes on to describe the problem of white dominated asexual spaces, and she argues that this community erasure is also representative of overarching theme of erasure of queer people of color. Perks continues to describe how in Western society, particularly, quote, Black women are either inherently sexualized or inherently desexualized beings, enduring the harm of white supremacy and racial antagonism, with little or no defense or solidarity from white asexuals, end quote. The research that Perks provides points to the ways in which women of color are specifically disempowered because of white supremacy, but accessibility to ACE communities have always been denied to people of color. In a journal article called Theorizing Conscious Black Asexuality, the author Miles describes how the perfect, quote, perfect, and supported figure of asexuality in society is white and is often male. And people of color are forced into either hypersexual or desexualized boxes regardless of their own sexuality with the stereotypes that we discussed before. However, Miles did also point to the way in which queer folks of color seek ways to foster communities and reclaim their power, as well as predominantly white spaces are beginning to elevate voices from people of color in not only the queer conversation, but the asexual conversation as well. So, research and knowledge like this is so important because knowledge about stereotypes can often be used to break them down and fight against them in society's views. By recognizing the harmful ways that white asexual people contribute to erasing the voices of people of color in the ace and larger queer conversations, that erasure can slowly be diminished. These conversations and these topics are important to have, important to bring up, because there are so many ways in which asexuality impacts different people, talking right now based on their race. And in order to fight against these stereotypes and stand by people of color within the queer and ace conversation, white asexual people, white queer people, and even white allosexual people, white heterosexual people have to confront their own ignorance and dis or misknowledge about ace people of color's experiences. But how does this even start? You know, how does one begin to break down what has been happening over generations? The kind of systematic disinformation that has trickled down generations that we continue to see today in the way that Black women are being treated, Black people are being treated, Asian people are being treated, and other people of color are being treated. The way to start is by discussing these experiences of people of color, and also for white individuals to support forums and communities that elevate, that highlight ace POC voices in the ongoing ace and queer conversation. If you were to look at it like a math formula, there is no formula that gives us, c squared without both a squared and b squared. That may seem like a weird metaphor, but when you think about it, white conversation, let's call it a squared. A squared has been dominating the conversation for so long, so there can be no change, positive, uplifting change, without that b squared in the conversation as well. For us to get to c squared, we have to, all of us, elevate each other's voices, elevate each other's experiences, regardless of how they may be different, regardless of how our asexual experiences may change over time. This diversity that we have in our community is precious and should be protected. A world of just a squared is very boring. It is a squared plus b squared that makes the solution, that makes c squared. So to wrap up our discussion of intersecting identities around asexuality and race, I want to once again ask you guys, what is your favorite part about your ace identity? But more than that, I also want to ask, as we're talking about intersecting ideas, for all kinds of listeners out there, what is your favorite part of your identity? It doesn't matter what. We're opening up the conversation to a broad category now. Whether it be your relationships, whether it be your goals, whatever you find that holds steadfast and supports your identity. What do you love about it? What is your favorite part? And please share in the comments. Anyway, thank you for joining me today, and we'll see you next time here at the Space.